using that as true. When we see the area of interest, then increase to the mag mode and take a look, and then go back to normal. This number 9, how does using the last frame hold technique affect patient exposure? So what happens when the radiologist takes their foot off the dead man switch? It freezes, right? Guess what happened back in my day? And they took their foot off the dead man switch.
Black.
Nothing, that's right, nothing. The image went away. I know, right? And so, guess what? We're always keeping our foot down to see the image. And so, so now, the doctor maybe is doing a procedure, they take their foot off, they still have the image there that they can refer to, do a few things, step on the dead man switch again, and then get a live shot, and then freeze it. And so it gives them something to refer to. So what do you think that does for patient exposure? Absolutely reduces it. We've come a long way. Remember that slogan? We've come a long way, baby? You don't, do you? Be honest. Okay. No, it's a commercial for what item? Cigarettes.
Cigarette.
Virginia Slims.
She tastes like cigarettes.
We've come a long way, baby. That's their slogan.
It's a bunch of non-smokers.
Are they even made anymore? I don't know. Okay.
Virginia Slims.
Sorry. Anyway, I date myself all the time. I do. It's just like, how old are you, lady? Okay. Okay. Number 10. Where are my pens?
Donnie has one.
Mr. Donnie.
They call.
Who has the pens? Who has the pens? Thank you. I just need to erase. Thank you. Okay. Which imaging technique is best used to lower patient exposure? Spot film cassette or spot film camera? Spot film cassette was when we took an image. Right now you're taking digital images, right? They can take an image and you can see it on the monitor. They're little images. Am I saying it right? Is that correct? Okay. So, but back in the day, we only had the TV monitor, so we didn't have another monitor to have those images. So we took x-rays. So we would be fluoroing, then we see something, or the doctor will see something they want to take an image of. They use a cassette with film in it, film screen cassette, and then the fluoro tube would go into x-ray mode, take an x-ray image, and then go back to fluoro mode. So not only was the patient getting radiation with the fluoroscopy, normally, naturally, then they also got more for every x-ray that was taken. So the dose.
What is the point of that?
The point of that is to for a radiologist to go back to their office, and then they look at all the spot film images, and that's what they were. They were x-rays of what they saw on the monitor.
But today we can do save monitor, store monitor, whatever.
The radiologist can pull it up on their monitor,
right
from that fluoro exam. They did not have a monitor. Do you know what previous radiologists back in the film screen days? Do you know how they looked at an image? View boxes, light boxes, illuminators. And have you seen, I guess they're completely gone now, but they would have them like this. So the doctors would sit in their offices in the semi-dark, and their view boxes would be all lit up, and you come in and you bring an image and you slap it up there. Mr. McDermott, I don't know if you can do, are you able to snap the x-ray up there?
Do?
Come and press it. I can never do it.
Really?
No, the guys would always, they would snap it. I just kind of threw it.
Yeah, no, but you.
I guess a
you-
smaller,
yeah,
you'd
you-
have to have a smaller film.
Put a
No,
little
but
frisbee
no, you
action
just
to
throw
it.
a little frisbee.
Yeah, but they would like, I know some of the guys would just like snap it up there like that.
Like dealing cards.
Yeah. And you don't do that in front of a radiologist unless you can do it. Oh, so anyway, I just got lucky that first time. Anyway.
So that's what a radiologist, then they have these banks of, okay, so imagine this on a big, round, pulley thing. So you had these, and they would articulate, and it would come down below desk level, so they would have rows and rows, and they'd push a button, and then this would come in front of them, and then they push another button, this would come down and lower in front of them.
Like a dry cleaners.
Yes, like a dry cleaners, yes. And so they would be reading, that's all they did all day long. Stacks of, like our film jackets, patients' files in there, just stacks of those on their desk, and that's what they would read. So they didn't have monitors to look at. So I just wish I could.
The only
take-
reason I ask is someone actually asked us to take a X-ray while using the C-arm.
Oh, you can do that. It'll go into radiographic mode.
Yeah.
Yeah, and so that just, and you can do that, and so the purpose of that not being there, but some guesses would be if they wanted to permanently document something, maybe for medical legal purposes, or to show another doctor, you know, this is what we did. Maybe they took an x-ray of the final product of whatever they finished up with, for those purposes.
Okay.
Would be a guess. So the spot film camera came along, and this was where it was, I don't know if you remember the big movie film, it was 105 millimeter. And so this image was taken off and it wasn't a computer monitor, it was a TV monitor.
Mm-hmm.
And oh my gosh, the radiologists loved it because it just took the image off the monitor, so there wasn't another x-ray exposure to add to the patient's exposure. Okay, but it's 105 millimeter versus a 10 by 12, a 14 by 17, whatever they may be using. So the other problem with that, and
Is that when you cut it?
yes, they were little. They either were in a roll or they were little cut films. Kaiser's, I remember, used a little cut film when I first, went around to the hospitals. I was impressed. Ours, I just had the roll. And they had the little cut films, and I thought those were just so cute little bitty. But that's what you had to look at. So the doctors liked it because they could take as many images as they want. And then, but the problem was they were small, and second of all, it's off the monitor. What's the weakest link of the Fluoro system is the monitor. So you're taking an image off the weakest link of the system. So an x-ray, when you took an x-ray like Mr. James was talking about with the C-arm, that's the gold standard. That is exquisite detail compared to anything that we have so far. So taking an image off the monitor, it was sub quality. Okay. So now that I've told you all that, which is better, spot in terms of lower patient exposure, which one would be less?
Photo spot camera.
The photo spot camera or the spot film camera? And there's not much different. I like the term photo spot because it's quite a bit different than that one. They're so similar. But this one is using radiation and that one is not. Or extra radiation, I should say. How often should brightness, gain, and contrast be tested? We did not go over this tonight, but any guesses?
Once a week.
Once a week. And then number 12, how should the image intensifier be placed in regards to the patient during fluoroscopy? So, in other words, like, the eye tube can move up and down, right? And so, is it better to be closer to the patient or away from the patient?
Closer.
Farther.
closer.
Okay, what is the II tube? That is your image receptor. So do we want our image receptor further or closer away? Closer. So it's good to keep the the image intensifier closer to the patient. Number 13, how would providing clear instructions to the patient during fluoroscopy decrease patient exposure? So of all the things that we can do to reduce our patient exposure, for our instructions to be clear, how would that help? No confusion. I'm sure you're much better than you were at, this time a year ago. But have you ever told a patient something that you thought you were clear about and they did something different? Tell me I'm not the only
Less
one.
less
Does that
repeat
not
exposures.
happen? So every time they don't follow your instructions, what happens?
Chance of a repeat.
More exposure for whatever reason. So if they're not following your instructions, that takes more time, and that could equate to more fluoro time if they're not following. So clear instructions, helping them with whatever it is that they need to do, drink more, turn over, things like that. When should gonadal shielding be used during fluoroscopy? It should be used all the time except when it doesn't interfere with the exam. And then number 15, list all the ways you can think of. You can probably better answer this question maybe after next week. You've got 10 Pearls of Wisdom handout, but there's lots of things you can do. So let's just try to think of some of those. And they were mentioned before. I saw the word collimation, good instructions, shielding, gonadal shielding. Pardon me? Pulsing, having a fluorotube that is in pulse mode, and what do you call it when you're doing that with the dead man switch? Intermediate fluoro? Is that what it's called? Intermittent. Did I say intermediate? Oh dear. Intermittent is what I meant. What mode do you want to be in? Normal mode versus mag mode. Keep the II tube closer to the
Good.
patient.
I'll copy you later.
I think ultimately, as you move throughout this semester and learning more and more, we're just kind of starting off, and this is a review for you, but I think everything focuses and concentrates on exposure reduction with good image quality. So I would imagine there would be lots of questions about reducing patient exposure. Anybody come up with anything else that you can think of off the top of your head?
There's a button on the C-arm for a low dose.
Okay, so it automatically goes into, so on the C-arm, there's a button that you can push for low dose. And when do you use that? For every exam? Yeah, I would think.
Mostly, I tried to use it at one time for arthrogram and it didn't work very well.
What didn't work? Why didn't it work?
It looked kind of grainy.
Okay, perfect, that's exactly what I wanted. So, there's a button on the C-arm that is a low dose button. Are you, any of you familiar with that? Okay, why doesn't it work?
Always grainy.
It's grainy. What's the problem with low dose?
Quantum model.
Quantum model. Quantum model. That's why those CT techs, I don't know if it's CT techs that,
Oh, they
or
like
the
blasting
person
people.
calibrating the CT machines, they didn't calibrate it to the lowest best dose, right? You have a range from the minimum amount of dose to maximum, and anywhere the image quality will get better and better as you increase that. And so then there comes a point, that threshold of going too low, and then you get the quantum model. So you've heard of dose creep, right? And so that's what happens. If you're going to not be sure, guess where everybody goes? To the higher dose. You get a better quality picture. Who
Shoot 'em.
doesn't like a better quality picture?
Shoot 'em hot.
Nobody, everybody, right?
Shoot them hot.
So we tend to go higher. So we don't want to do that.
There is a balance. So if you're getting that grainy image, then what do? Yes, you incrementally increase the MA until it's where it needs to be. So there's a little trade-off. Yes, the patient gets a little bit more radiation, but what's the point of any fluoroscopy if you can't find the pathology? You've got, so the benefits are outweighing the risks. So if you need a fluoro exam, you might as well have one that's diagnostic, even though the patient's getting, radiation. That's the whole point of it. Okay, any questions? Okay, thanks for bringing that up. Okay, let me see where we are now. How do I get out of this? And I noticed I posted it, but I already got out of it. Let me just pull it back up. I don't think you have this. I posted it, but I don't think I printed it for you. But I want to show you where it is. And it was from last semester, from 251. Was that last semester? Not summer, but last.
Jeez.
251 was
It's
just
all a
spring.
blur.
I know, right? Wasn't that 100 years ago?
Spring.
Okay, is this one right here? And I think I told you I would number these and I didn't. It is past the ASRT stuff. It's II review questions. Okay, what we just did was this one right here on Canvas. We just did, right? Isn't that the title of
Mhm.
what we just did?
Yes.
Okay, there's another one, II review questions, and that's really more of what I wanted. That's what you did last semester, or spring. And so do some of these look familiar? What's the purpose of the glass envelope? What is the input phosphor material? What is the purpose of the input phosphor? Do you
Mhm.
have that in your packet? It would be in your packet I passed out.
No.
Okay. It is on Canvas if you want to print it, again, for review questions. If you didn't burn all your notes from spring, you should have this. Okay, it's not any different than what
Might
we
still
had
have that.
before. Okay, so that's on Canvas. Okay, do you remember this?
Mhm.
What is it?
It's vignetting.
You mean Big Daddy?
Oh yeah, I know all about that.
Oh, yeah. Okay, because the II tube, the traditional, the conventional II tube was convex, okay? What happens is the brightness around the periphery of that input phosphor, those electrons would have further to go than the ones straight up the middle. Okay, you have your II input phosphor going to the output phosphor. Those electrons had a little bit further to go, so they were weaker than the ones right through the middle. So as a result, the periphery of the image was less bright. Fall off in the brightness at the periphery. So
That's what it
basically,
says.
what would we do? Anything that we're looking at that is of interest would be in the middle. We wouldn't want to look at anything out in the periphery of that. Your flat panel II tubes don't have that issue. Okay, when it's flat, we don't have that. So you're looking at a wire mesh test here. So veiling glare, we talked about this before. It says when X-ray photons are not converted to a light photon, X-rays can go straight through the II tube. They're very penetrating. Not all of them are converted throughout that whole process. And so what happens when an X-ray photon it streaks through and hits the output phosphor, you get that veiling glare. You may remember this from last spring. So this is veiling glare. This isn't a photograph, but you can imagine this happening in the fluoroscopy. You cannot see the outline of the stop sign because of that glare. When you get rid of it, then you're able to see it. So it can be taken care of electronically. Here are the two types of distortion. There's another type, I think is S distortion too. I don't have an image of that, and I think you'll talk about it later, right? But this is the two that we've talked about before, pincushion and barrel distortion. The top one or the bottom one is the pincushion. Everybody, top or bottom is the pincushion. True or false? I mean, not true or false. The top of the-
The top.
The bottom is the bottom is true.
I didn't sleep well. Okay, the bottom is the pincushion. The top one is the barrel distortion. So this is what you'll get, pincushion, with fluoroscopy.
Miss Smith, you are right again. Right as rain.
So pincushion is where the inside squares look smaller than the outside squares. So it's a type of distortion. Okay. We have a little time. Do you have your magnification review? Is probably the next in your packet. Right before the next, should be right before the next crossword puzzle.
Yes.
So if you want to turn in, before you leave, because that's all I have for tonight, you'll want to turn in your picture labeled, your questions answered, basic operational procedures answered, and if you want to do your magnification, turn those in and I will give you points for that.